Staff Sergeant Maya Torres sat in the processing office at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base, filling out the endless paperwork that came with a new assignment. At 32 years old, she had been in the Marine Corps for 14 years, but this transfer felt different. This felt like starting over. The mark on her left shoulder burned slightly under her uniform, the way it always did when she was stressed. It was a small tattoo, barely 2 inches across, a silver trident pierced by 3 stars. Most people who saw it thought it was just decorative, maybe something she had gotten on a whim during a deployment. They had no idea what it really meant. Torres, a young corporal, stuck his head through the doorway. "Sergeant Major wants to see you in his office." Maya gathered her papers and followed him down the hallway. Camp Pendleton was massive, home to thousands of Marines, and she was about to become just another face in the crowd. After everything she had been through, maybe that was for the best. Sergeant Major Bill Hendricks looked up when she entered. He was in his late 40s, with a weathered face and the solid build of a man who had spent his entire adult life in the Corps. His eyes scanned her service record on his computer screen. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he said, his tone neutral. "Welcome to 1st Marine Division. I see you're coming from." He paused, squinting at the screen. "Administrative duties at Quantico." "Yes, Sergeant Major." It wasn't exactly a lie. For the past 2 years, that's what her official assignment had been. What the paperwork didn't show, what it couldn't show, was where she had really been and what she had really been doing. 14 years in and you've spent the last 2 pushing papers. Hendricks leaned back in his chair. "That seems like a waste. What happened? You get hurt, burn out." Maya kept her face impassive. "Just served where the Corps needed me, Sergeant Major." Hendricks looked skeptical. "Right. Well, you're assigned to the training company. We're running a new boot drop next week. Fresh Marines coming in for infantry training. You'll be assisting with admin and logistics." More admin work, more hiding. Maya had known this was coming, but it still stung. "Understood, Sergeant Major." "Dismissed." Maya left the office and headed toward the barracks where she'd be staying. As she walked across the base, she passed groups of young Marines in training, running drills, shouting cadences. She had been like them once, young and eager, ready to prove herself. The next morning, Maya reported to the training company. The officer in charge was Captain Derek Collins, a muscular man in his early 30s with a swagger that suggested he thought highly of himself. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he said, looking her up and down. "You're older than I expected." "I've been in for 14 years, sir." 14 years and a staff sergeant? Well, that's a slow climb, isn't it? He didn't wait for an answer. "Anyway, we run a tight ship here. I expect everyone to pull their weight. Think you can handle that?" Maya felt the familiar frustration rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. "Yes, sir." "Good. Report to Gunnery Sergeant Miles. He'll get you set up." Gunnery Sergeant Tom Miles was more welcoming, though clearly puzzled by her assignment. "Admin work at Quantico, huh?" he said, reviewing her orders. "What did you do before that?" "Various assignments," Maya said vaguely. Miles studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, we're glad to have you. We're short-staffed, so another NCO is always welcome." The first few days passed in a blur of routine tasks. Maya helped coordinate training schedules, managed supply requests, and assisted with the administrative side of running a training company. It was mind-numbing work for someone with her experience, but she told herself it was necessary. On the 4th day, the temperature spiked to 95 degrees. Maya was in the supply shed, inventorying gear in the stifling heat. She unbuttoned the top of her uniform and rolled up her sleeves, trying to get some air circulation. "Hey, Torres," one of the junior sergeants, a cocky 25-year-old named Brock, stuck his head in. "Captain wants the—" He stopped, staring at her exposed shoulder. "What the hell is that?" Maya looked down. The mark was visible, the silver trident and 3 stars stark against her brown skin. Brock laughed and called to his friends. "Guys, check this out. Torres has a cute little tattoo. What is that supposed to be? A mermaid fork." 2 more Marines crowded into the doorway, grinning. "It's a trident," one of them said. "Maybe she's a big fan of Aquaman." They all laughed. Maya quickly rolled down her sleeve, her jaw tight. "It's just a tattoo," she said quietly. "Just seems funny," Brock continued, enjoying himself. "You've been riding a desk for 2 years, but you've got a warrior tattoo. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." But Brock wasn't done. "You know what I think? I think you're one of those Marines who talks about the glory days that never actually happened. Bet you've never even been in combat." Maya's hands clenched into fists, but she kept her voice level. "You don't know anything about me, Sergeant. I know you're old for your rank, and I know you've been shuffling papers while real Marines have been downrange fighting. That tells me everything I need to know." He left, laughing with his friends. Maya stood alone in the supply shed, breathing slowly, forcing herself to calm down. This was exactly why she had agreed to the administrative assignment. This was why her real service record was classified. This was why she couldn't defend herself, couldn't tell them the truth. Because the truth would put people in danger. The truth could never come out. That night, Maya sat in her small room in the barracks, looking at an old photograph she kept hidden in her wallet. It showed 5 people in unmarked fatigues, their faces partially obscured, standing in front of a helicopter in a desert somewhere. She was the only one in the photo still alive. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "How are you holding up?" She knew who it was. Colonel Sarah Price, her former commanding officer, one of the few people who knew the whole truth. Maya typed back, "Fine, just adjusting. Remember why you're there, stay low, stay safe." Maya put the phone down and looked at the mark on her shoulder in the mirror. The silver trident pierced by 3 stars. The symbol of Ghost Unit, a classified special operations team that officially didn't exist. She had earned this mark 5 years ago after completing a selection process that had a 90% failure rate. She had served in Ghost Unit for 3 years, conducting operations in 7 countries that would never be acknowledged. She had lost friends, lost part of her soul, and done things that would haunt her forever. And then, 2 years ago, everything had fallen apart. The mission in Yemen had been compromised. Her team had been ambushed. Maya had been the only survivor, extracted with 2 bullet wounds and a shattered collarbone. While she recovered, the Ghost Unit had been disbanded, its members scattered to different assignments, their records scrubbed, their service hidden behind layers of classification. The official story was that Maya Torres had been at Quantico doing administrative work. The truth was buried so deep that even most generals didn't have access to it. And now she was here, at Camp Pendleton, being mocked by junior Marines who thought she was nothing more than a paper pusher with delusions of grandeur. Maya touched the mark on her shoulder gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was apologizing to, her fallen teammates, herself, the Marine she used to be. She pulled on a long-sleeved shirt, covering the mark. Tomorrow she would go back to being invisible, back to pretending she was someone she wasn't. Because that's what survivors did. They adapted, they endured. Even when it hurt. 2 weeks into her assignment, Maya had settled into a routine. She arrived early, worked efficiently, and kept to herself. The other Marines mostly ignored her, which was fine. She wasn't here to make friends. Captain Collins remained dismissive, treating her like an inconvenience rather than an asset. Sergeant Brock and his friends continued their casual mockery whenever they saw her, though they had mostly moved on from the tattoo to simply calling her Grandma because of her age. Maya took it all in stride. She had survived things that would break most people. She could survive being underestimated. On a humid Tuesday morning, the training company received word that they would be hosting a distinguished visitor. Admiral James Richardson, commander of Marine Forces Pacific, would be touring the facility as part of a broader inspection of West Coast training operations. Captain Collins went into overdrive, demanding that everything be perfect. The barracks were cleaned until they sparkled. Equipment was organized and reorganized. Every Marine was told to be on their best behavior. "This is important," Collins told the assembled staff. "Admiral Richardson's evaluation could affect our funding, our resources, everything. I want 0 mistakes. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they replied in unison. Maya was assigned to help coordinate the logistics of the visit, timing, locations, personnel assignments. It was typical admin work, and she executed it flawlessly. The day of the visit arrived. Admiral Richardson was in his late 50s, tall and distinguished, with silver hair and the bearing of a man who had spent 4 decades in military service. He wore his uniform with precision, his chest decorated with rows of ribbons that told the story of a remarkable career. Captain Collins greeted him with excessive enthusiasm, practically tripping over himself to make a good impression. Maya watched from a distance as the Admiral toured the training facilities, asking pointed questions and taking notes. The temperature climbed as the morning wore on. By noon, it was approaching 100 degrees. The Admiral's tour took him to the outdoor training ranges where recruits were running combat drills. Maya was nearby, coordinating with the range safety officers, making sure everything ran smoothly. She had rolled up her sleeves again. It was simply too hot to care about modesty. She was checking her clipboard when she heard Captain Collins call out, "Staff Sergeant Torres, we need the firing statistics for this range." Maya grabbed the folder and jogged over to where Collins stood with Admiral Richardson and his entourage. She handed the folder to Collins, came to attention, and started to step back. That's when the Admiral's eyes fell on her shoulder. His expression changed instantly. The professional detachment vanished, replaced by something Maya couldn't quite identify: recognition, shock, respect. Admiral Richardson stepped forward, his eyes locked on the small tattoo of the silver trident pierced by 3 stars. Then he did something that made everyone present freeze in confusion. He snapped to attention and rendered a sharp salute. To a staff sergeant. Captain Collins's mouth fell open. Gunnery Sergeant Miles looked stunned. The other Marines in the vicinity stared in disbelief. Admirals didn't salute enlisted personnel. It simply didn't happen. The entire military hierarchy was built on the principle that junior ranks saluted senior ranks, not the other way around. Maya's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Her cover was about to be blown. But training took over. She returned the salute crisply, her face carefully neutral. "At ease," Admiral Richardson said, his voice carrying an edge of emotion. He turned to Captain Collins, whose face had gone pale. "Captain, I need to speak with Staff Sergeant Torres, privately, now." "Sir, yes, sir," Collins stammered. The Admiral gestured to Maya. "Is there an office we can use?" "The company headquarters is air-conditioned, sir," Maya said quietly. "Lead the way, Staff Sergeant." Maya walked across the compound, acutely aware of every eye following them. Behind her, she could hear the Admiral's aide quietly dispersing the confused onlookers. They entered the headquarters building, and Maya led him to Captain Collins's office. The Admiral closed the door behind them and turned to face her. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he extended his hand. "It's an honor, Staff Sergeant Torres, a genuine honor." Maya shook his hand, still processing what was happening. "Sir, I don't understand." "That mark on your shoulder," Admiral Richardson said. "I know what it means. I'm one of perhaps 20 people in the entire military who does." He paused. "Ghost unit." Maya's blood ran cold. "Sir, I can't." "You don't have to confirm or deny anything," the Admiral said, holding up a hand. "I know your service record is classified. I know you can't talk about what you did. But I was read into Ghost Unit operations 3 years ago when I was Vice Admiral of Naval Intelligence. I reviewed mission reports. I saw what your team accomplished." He sat down heavily in one of the chairs, suddenly looking tired. "The operation in Yemen, the ambush. I read the after-action report. You held off 30 hostile fighters for 6 hours with 2 bullet wounds waiting for extraction. You were the only member of your team to make it out." Maya felt her throat tighten. She didn't want to remember Yemen. She had spent 2 years trying to forget. "You received the Navy Cross for that action," Richardson continued. "Classified, of course. The ceremony was private, just you and a handful of people with clearance, but I saw the citation. Extraordinary heroism and unwavering devotion to duty in the face of overwhelming enemy forces." "Why are you telling me this, sir?" Maya asked quietly. Richardson stood and walked to the window, looking out at the training ranges. "Because I've spent the last 10 minutes watching junior Marines treat you with disrespect. I've seen your company commander dismiss you like you're worthless. And I know that you can't defend yourself, can't tell them who you really are and what you've really done." He turned back to her. "That's unacceptable. You're a hero, Staff Sergeant Torres. You've served this country with distinction in ways that most Marines can't even imagine. And you're being wasted here, doing administrative work, being mocked by people who aren't fit to shine your boots." "Sir, I agreed to this assignment. It was for security purposes, if my real background became known." "I understand the security concerns," Richardson interrupted. "But there has to be a better way. You're what, 32 years old? You have years of service left. You shouldn't spend them filing paperwork and being treated like a failure. Maya felt something break loose inside her, some barrier she had been maintaining for 2 years. What else can I do, sir? Ghost unit is disbanded. The men and women I served with are scattered. My best friend died in my arms in the desert. I wake up every night seeing their faces. Her voice cracked. Maybe I deserve to file paperwork. Maybe that's all I'm good for now. Richardson's expression softened. You're wrong, Staff Sergeant. You're suffering from survivor's guilt and probably PTSD, and you're punishing yourself for being alive when your teammates aren't. I've seen it before. Hell, I've felt it myself. He moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. But you dishonor their memory by wasting your talents. They died so you could live. Don't throw that gift away. Maya wiped her eyes quickly, angry at herself for showing emotion. What would you have me do, sir? First, I'm going to have a conversation with Captain Collins about how he treats his Marines. Second, I'm going to make some calls. There are programs for operators like you, training positions, advisory roles, places where your skills would be valued and your experience could help others. Sir, my records will remain classified, but there are ways to work around that, trust me. A knock came at the door. The Admiral's aide stuck his head in. Sir, we're running behind schedule. Give me 5 more minutes, Richardson said. After the aide left, the Admiral pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to Maya. This is my direct number. Not my office, not my staff, me. I want you to call me in 48 hours. By then, I'll have some options for you. Maya took the card, still feeling off balance. Why are you doing this, sir? Richardson smiled sadly. Because 28 years ago, I was a young SEAL lieutenant running classified operations in Central America. One mission went bad. My team was compromised. We barely made it out and we lost 3 good men. When we got back, the mission was scrubbed from the records. Officially, we were never there. Those 3 men died and there was no recognition, no acknowledgement, no justice. He looked at the mark on Maya's shoulder. I swore then that if I ever had the power to help other operators in similar situations, I would. Now I have that power, and I'm not going to waste it. He opened the door, then paused. One more thing, Staff Sergeant. When I saluted you out there, it wasn't a mistake. You've earned more respect than most flag officers I know. Don't ever forget that. Then he was gone, leaving Maya standing alone in the office, holding his card, feeling something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. The news of Admiral Richardson's salute spread through the base like wildfire. By the end of the day, everyone in the training company was talking about it. The rumors ranged from the plausible to the absurd. I heard she saved the Admiral's son in Iraq, one Marine speculated. No, man, I heard she's actually a general working undercover, another claimed. Maybe she's his daughter from a secret affair, someone else suggested. Captain Collins called Maya into his office late that afternoon. He looked uncomfortable, shifting papers on his desk without meeting her eyes. Staff Sergeant Torres, he began, I had an interesting conversation with Admiral Richardson after his tour. Maya stood at attention, saying nothing. He suggested, strongly suggested, that perhaps I haven't been utilizing your talents effectively. He also mentioned that I should review how I speak to my Marines. Collins finally looked up at her. I may have been dismissive of your experience. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was probably the closest Collins would come to one. I don't know what you did to earn the Admiral's respect, he continued, and he made it clear I shouldn't ask. But effective immediately, I'm reassigning you. We need someone to redesign our combat training curriculum, someone with actual operational experience. I think you might be suited for that. Maya felt a small surge of satisfaction. Yes, sir, I can do that. Good, dismissed. As Maya left the office, she passed Sergeant Brock in the hallway. He looked at her with newfound uncertainty, the cocky smirk gone from his face. Staff Sergeant, he said, actually coming to attention. I wanted to, that is, I may have spoken out of turn before about your tattoo and other things. Maya studied him for a moment. He was young, probably hadn't seen combat yet, still full of bravado that came from inexperience. You know what you did wrong, Sergeant? She asked. Yes, Staff Sergeant, I was disrespectful. That's part of it, but the bigger mistake was making assumptions. You saw what you expected to see, an older staff sergeant doing admin work, and you decided that told you everything about who I am. You never considered that there might be more to the story. Brock's face reddened. Yes, Staff Sergeant, you're right. In combat, that kind of assumption gets people killed. Enemy fighters don't always look dangerous. Threats don't always come from expected directions. If you want to be an effective Marine, you need to learn to look deeper. I will, Staff Sergeant, I promise. Maya nodded. Good, now get back to work. That evening, Maya sat in her room, staring at Admiral Richardson's card. 48 hours, he had said. By then he would have options for her. She thought about what he had said, about dishonoring her fallen teammates by wasting her talents. The words had cut deep because they were true. She had been hiding, punishing herself, going through the motions of being a Marine without actually being one. Her phone buzzed, a text from the same unknown number as before. I heard you had an interesting day. Richardson is a good man, trust him. Colonel Sarah Price, still watching out for her. Maya typed back, he recognized the mark. He's one of the few who would. What are you going to do? Maya looked at her reflection in the mirror, at the mark on her shoulder that she had been hiding for 2 years. I don't know yet, she typed, but I think I'm done hiding. Over the next 2 days, Maya threw herself into redesigning the training curriculum. She drew on her operational experience, on lessons learned in combat, on tactics that had kept her alive in the worst situations imaginable. She couldn't tell the junior Marines where this knowledge came from, but she could share the knowledge itself. She could make them better, more prepared, more likely to survive when they faced the real thing. Gunnery Sergeant Miles watched her work with growing respect. I don't know where you learned all this, Staff Sergeant, but it's good, really good. This is better than anything I've seen in 20 years. Just trying to help the next generation, Gunny, Maya said. On the second evening, exactly 48 hours after the Admiral's visit, Maya called the number on his card. He answered on the first ring. Staff Sergeant Torres, I was hoping you'd call. You said you'd have options for me, sir. I do, 3 of them actually. First option, there's an instructor position at the Special Operations Training Group. You'd be teaching advanced tactics to Marines going into reconnaissance and special operations. It's at Camp Lejeune, so you'd have to relocate, but it's good work. Maya listened, her heart beating faster. Second option, the Marine Corps is standing up a new advisory team to work with Allied Special Operations Forces. It's mostly training missions, some deployments to friendly countries. Your experience would be invaluable, though you'd obviously be advising on tactics without being able to discuss where you learned them. And the third option, Maya asked. Richardson paused. The third option is more complicated. There's a new unit being formed. Similar mission profile to Ghost Unit, but different structure, different oversight. They're looking for experienced operators to help get it off the ground. It would mean going back into the world you left 2 years ago. Maya's breath caught, back to special operations, back to the life she thought she'd lost. I won't lie to you, Richardson continued. It would be dangerous, it would be demanding, and it would require you to pass a psychological evaluation to make sure you're ready. After what you went through in Yemen, no one would blame you if you said no. What do you think I should do, sir? Maya asked quietly. That's not my decision to make, Staff Sergeant. But I'll tell you this, I've seen a lot of warriors in my career. Some of them burn out, lose their edge, can't come back from trauma. Others have something inside them that refuses to quit, that finds a way to heal and grow stronger. You strike me as the second type. Maya looked at the photograph of her Ghost Unit team, at the faces of the friends she had lost. Can I have some time to think about it? She asked. Of course, take a week. Call me when you've decided. After they hung up, Maya sat in silence for a long time. 3 options, 3 different futures, 3 different versions of who she could become. The safe choice was the instructor position. Teach others, stay stateside, live a relatively normal life. The middle choice was the advisory team. Some travel, some purpose, but still relatively controlled. The dangerous choice was the new unit. Back into the shadows, back into the fight, back into the world that had cost her so much. She knew which one she wanted. She had known from the moment the Admiral mentioned it. But wanting something and being ready for it were 2 different things. Maya pulled out her phone and made a call she had been avoiding for 2 years. Dr. Martinez, this is Maya Torres. I know it's been a while, but I think I'm ready to talk about Yemen, about everything. The therapist's voice was warm and professional. I'm glad you called, Maya. I've been hoping you would. When would you like to come in? As soon as possible, Maya said. I have some decisions to make, and I need to make sure I'm making them for the right reasons. How about tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? I'll be there. After the call ended, Maya felt something shift inside her. For 2 years, she had been running from her trauma, burying it under routine and isolation. But you couldn't heal what you refused to acknowledge. If she was going to move forward, in any direction, she had to first deal with the past. She touched the mark on her shoulder, feeling its familiar outline. I'm not ready yet, she whispered to the memories of her fallen teammates. But I'm going to be, I promise. And for the first time in 2 years, she believed it. 6 months later, Maya stood in a nondescript building at an undisclosed location, surrounded by 15 other operators. Some were Marines, some were Navy SEALs, a few were Army Special Forces. All of them had the same look, experienced, hardened, and bearing the invisible scars of classified operations. The new unit didn't have an official name. Officially, it didn't exist at all. But the mission was clear. Conduct high-risk operations in denied areas where conventional forces couldn't operate and where even traditional special operations teams would struggle. Maya had spent the intervening months working with Dr. Martinez, processing her trauma, learning to cope with the survivor's guilt that had been crushing her. It hadn't been easy. She had broken down more times than she could count, relived Yemen in nightmares and flashbacks, confronted demons she had been avoiding for years. But she had done the work. And when she went back for the psychological evaluation, the military psychiatrist had cleared her for special operations duty. Admiral Richardson had been true to his word. He had personally walked her application through the bureaucratic maze, ensuring that her ghost unit experience was properly evaluated without compromising classification. Now here she was, starting over, getting a second chance at the life she thought she had lost. Listen up, said Colonel David Grant, the unit commander. He was in his early 50s, a former Delta Force operator with a reputation for running the tightest missions in the special operations community. You've all been selected because you're the best at what you do, but being the best individually doesn't mean shit if we can't function as a team. He walked among them, making eye contact with each operator. Over the next 3 months, we're going to train together, deploy together, and learn to trust each other completely. Some of you won't make it through the training cycle. That's okay. Better to find out now than in the field. His eyes landed on Maya. Some of you are coming from units that no longer exist. You're carrying memories of teammates you've lost. That's also okay. We honor those memories by being better, by learning from the past, by making sure their sacrifices meant something. Maya felt the words resonate deep in her chest. The training cycle was brutal. Maya had thought she was in good shape, but the program pushed her to new limits. They ran counterterrorism drills, hostage rescues, direct action raids, and reconnaissance operations. They trained in the mountains, the desert, the jungle, and urban environments. But more importantly, they learned to work together. The operators came from different backgrounds, different services, different experiences. Forging them into a cohesive team took time and effort. Maya found herself becoming close with 2 other operators in particular. Marcus, a Navy SEAL who had lost most of his team in a helicopter crash in Syria, and Jennifer, an Army Special Forces soldier who had survived an ambush in Somalia that had killed her entire A-team. They were all survivors, all carrying ghosts, all trying to find a way forward. One night, 3 months into the training, the 3 of them sat outside the barracks, looking at the stars. You ever wonder if we're crazy, Jennifer asked, for coming back to this? Every day, Marcus admitted, but I tried the alternative. I spent a year teaching at Bud S, training the next generation. It was important work, but I felt like I was watching life from the outside. This feels real. I know what you mean, Maya said quietly. I spent 2 years hiding from who I really am. It was safer, but it was also slowly killing me. Jennifer nodded. My therapist asked me if I was coming back because I wanted to or because I didn't know how to be anything else. I told her both things could be true. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The mark on your shoulder, Marcus said to Maya. I've been meaning to ask, what unit was that? Maya smiled slightly. Can't tell you. That classified, huh? That classified. Must have been badass, Jennifer said. It was, Maya replied softly. And it cost me everything, but it also made me who I am. 2 weeks later, the unit received its first mission. A terrorist leader was hiding in a compound in West Africa. Intelligence suggested he was planning a major attack on Western targets. The unit's job was to capture or kill him before that happened. Colonel Grant briefed the team personally. "This is our first operation as a unit. It's going to set the tone for everything that comes after. I need you sharp, I need you focused, and I need you to trust each other completely." The mission launched 48 hours later. Maya was assigned to the assault team, responsible for clearing the compound and securing the target. As the helicopter flew through the darkness toward the objective, Maya felt the familiar pre-mission adrenaline. But this time, it was different. This time, she wasn't haunted by the ghosts of her past. She was honoring them by being here, by continuing the mission, by doing what she was trained to do. The operation went smoothly. The team hit the compound with devastating precision, secured the terrorist leader, and extracted without casualties. It was a textbook mission, exactly the way it was supposed to work. When they returned to base, Colonel Grant gathered them for the debrief. "Outstanding work," he said. "Every element performed perfectly. This is what we've been training for. This is what we can accomplish when we work together." He looked at Maya. "Staff Sergeant Torres, I want to specifically commend your performance. Your tactical decisions under pressure were excellent. You've earned the respect of everyone on this team." Later that night, Maya received a text from Admiral Richardson. "Heard the mission was a success. Proud of you, Marine. You've come a long way." Maya smiled and typed back, "Thank you for believing in me, sir, for seeing what I couldn't see in myself." That's what good leaders do. Keep making us proud. 3 days later, Maya was called to Colonel Grant's office. When she entered, she was surprised to see Admiral Richardson there, along with 2 other flag officers she didn't recognize. "Staff Sergeant Torres," Grant said, "please have a seat." Maya sat, confused by the formal atmosphere. Admiral Richardson spoke first. "Staff Sergeant, 6 months ago you were at a crossroads. You could have chosen the safe path, the easy path. Instead, you chose to confront your trauma, to heal yourself, and to return to service at the highest level. That took extraordinary courage." One of the other flag officers, an Army general, continued. "Your performance over the past 6 months has been exceptional. Colonel Grant speaks very highly of you. So does everyone in your unit." "What we're about to tell you is classified," the third officer, a Navy vice admiral, said. 2 years ago, Ghost Unit was officially disbanded, but the decision was made to preserve the capability, to eventually reconstitute it under new leadership with new oversight. Maya's heart began to race. "This unit you've been training with," Admiral Richardson said, "is the foundation of that reconstitution. And Colonel Grant has recommended that you be promoted to gunnery sergeant and assigned as one of the team leaders." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Grant said with a smile. "Because we need you. Not just your skills, but your experience, your leadership, and your ability to inspire others who have been through trauma and come out the other side." "Yes, sir," Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely yes." After the officers left, Colonel Grant handed her a small box. "This is yours. You earned it 2 years ago, but it was classified. Now you can actually wear it." Maya opened the box. Inside was the Navy Cross, the medal she had been awarded for her actions in Yemen. Below it was another medal, one she didn't recognize. "That's the Ghost Unit Service Medallion," Grant explained. "Only 87 people in history have earned one. It's not an official military decoration, so you can't wear it on your uniform, but you can wear it here." He tapped his chest over his heart. Maya held the medallion carefully. It was silver, featuring the same trident and 3 stars that marked her shoulder, with the words, "In shadows we serve," engraved on the back. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. That weekend, Maya drove back to Camp Pendleton. She wanted to see how her training curriculum was working out, to check on the junior Marines she had briefly worked with. She found Sergeant Brock running a training exercise, using the tactics she had developed. He had deployed to Iraq in the month since she had left and had come back more mature, more serious. When he saw her, he came to attention. "Gunnery Sergeant Torres, we heard about your promotion. Congratulations." "Thank you, Sergeant. How did the deployment go?" "Good, Gunny, real good. And I have to tell you, the training you put together, it saved lives. There was a situation in Mosul, and the tactics you taught us made all the difference. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. I'm glad to hear it. Can I ask you something, Gunny? Brock said hesitantly. That tattoo on your shoulder, I never apologized properly for mocking it. I was an idiot. You were young, Maya corrected gently. We all make mistakes when we're young. Will you ever tell us what it means, where it came from? Maya smiled. Probably not, but I'll tell you this, every mark we carry tells a story. Some stories are meant to be shared, others need to stay private. The important thing is that we learn from them and use them to become better. Brock nodded. I understand, Gunny, and for what it's worth, after Admiral Richardson saluted you after everything that's happened since. You're kind of a legend around here. The junior Marines talk about you all the time. Tell them to focus less on legends and more on being the best Marines they can be, Maya said. That's what really matters. As she drove away from Camp Pendleton, Maya caught sight of her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Stronger, more confident, more at peace. Her phone rang. It was Jennifer. Hey, you coming back soon? We have a briefing tomorrow morning, new mission. I'm on my way, Maya said. Be there in a few hours. Good, Marcus and I are grabbing dinner tonight. Want to join? Absolutely. As she drove through the California evening, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. The young Marine from Montana who had wanted to prove herself. The ghost unit operator who had lost everything. The broken survivor who had spent 2 years hiding. And finally, the healed warrior who had found her way back. She touched the mark on her shoulder, no longer hidden beneath long sleeves. I hope I've made you proud, she said quietly, speaking to the teammates she had lost, to Captain Dawson, to everyone who had believed in her along the way. The mark on her shoulder was more than just a tattoo. It was a reminder of who she had been, what she had survived, and who she had become. It was a symbol of sacrifice and service. It was a badge of honor that most people would never understand. And that was okay. Because the people who mattered, the people who had earned the right to understand, they knew. They knew what the mark meant. They knew what Ghost Angel meant. And they saluted her for it, in their own ways, every single day. Maya smiled and accelerated, heading back toward her team, her mission, her purpose. Heading home,